What is up? Hanging out on a Saturday night. Because why not? Feel free to say hello as you pop in. Also, be sure to like. So, did the video last time and talked a little bit about just the opportunities that exist right now when it comes to accessing capital. I think one aspect of something that a lot of people aren't calculating into their projections is the inflation that's happening. And what that does is erode a lot of the cost of debt. Basically, you're borrowing in more expensive dollars is one way to look at it. It's almost like a short. If you do any trading, it's almost like doing a short where you're getting access to value at today's dollars, which is high, and then you're paying back at tomorrow's dollars, which are lower. So I wanted to walk through some interesting scenarios, something that I'm trying to push into every deal that I'm doing right now. And it's kind of the infinite return strategy that I talked about before, but with a twist, leveraging both the situation that we're in right now with debt and the coming inflation and why it's just almost got to be outrageous. Like there's going to be some pretty outrageous inflation. So part of what's happening, it's beneficial. I think one of the things that people don't understand is like, okay, why would the government have these very high inflation rates? And what's causing debt to be so inexpensive right now? And part of that is the fact that the government is loading up on debt. And the government understands that the same thing that you should be leveraging, they understand that if we borrow today and then we can pay back later at a lower value, then it's in our best interest to create that lower value in the future. And so it could be a chicken and egg thing, which happens, is it a conscious decision of, all right, let's make the value of the dollar lower so we can pay back? Or is it just the circumstance? And so if you owe a bunch of debt and now, trillions are being created and you have a choice to print the money to pay back that debt, or even just to be able to pay the interest on that debt, then obviously that's what you're going to do. If somebody's like, hey, you can create your own dollars and pay this debt back, or you can figure out some other way to give us some real value and pay this debt back. And, any sane person is going to say, oh yeah, I'll just use some paper, write up this currency. And so that creates the erosion in the value of debt. And so I think one of the things that's valuable for private equity investors is to start to think, as opposed to what is, what we usually think of it as inflation. Most people understand that it makes cash a liability. Most people don't think about the fact that their cash is a liability the more the inflation goes up. But in addition to that, thinking about it from the perspective of, if I can borrow, and we're doing things right now where there's a 0% interest rate. So if I can borrow at a 0%, even for a short period of time, and inflation is 4%, 3%, I'm basically getting paid 3%. You're literally getting paid, and that sounds outrageous, but you're getting paid to take on debt. And so as private equity investor, if you're starting a fund and you can get access to debt at a low cost, get paid this inflation rate to have that debt and then take the debt and really make a real return. That's obviously the very first goal. But in addition to that, you can take the equity that's in that deal, borrow against the deal that you just acquired, and now you're making money in two places with the same initial equity amount. And that's when you get into some really powerful returns. But the kind of the baseline here is just a simple understanding that, in addition to rates being amazing, banks being forced by the government to get as much money put to work as possible, we're in a time right now where the bonus to all of that is that inflation is basically paying private equity funds to take on the debt to acquire businesses. There's a flood about to happen. I mentioned on the last one that we were talking on our recent Dealmakers call. We got a client who's over in New Zealand. Shout out to you, Adrian. And one of the big opportunities that will happen is being able to take all of this debt. A lot of kind of the other trigger that will kind of sound like opportunity to us, that to most people it doesn't sound like opportunity at all. It's this idea that every time that they print trillions of dollars, a lot of that money ends up being invested in debt. And the reason is that most people at some point are putting that money into a bank, which that bank now then needs to get that money put to work. And so, they're investing it through their credit cards, through SBA, through commercial loans, through real estate loans, all of that. So when you hear about trillions of dollars being created, that's a trigger. Now, there's madness right now in Colombia specifically. But some people are even saying I may do a video about this because I've got a hotel. I got a couple investments in the country, and so obviously it's of special interest to me. But there's a lot of unrest because the government is trying to tax the people even more, even though there's barely been jobs. It's just we've had a year of turmoil. Now, in a lot of other countries, they don't have this ability to just borrow outrageous amounts of money or print tons of money because they're actually, just with the unrest, they haven't even printed a ton of money like the US, but just because of the unrest, the finance minister resigned. And what we saw is like the peso against the dollar has just plummeted. And so they don't have this power just printing money. If they need money, they got to get it somehow. And so that's what's going on is they're trying to figure out how to get the money. And one of the ways that most governments get money is through violence. Like, most people don't realize that what enforces taxes is violence, and that's in every country, everywhere. Like it's the American government is literally threatening violence by putting you into a jail with a bunch of violent people if you don't give them money. And so that's the way that it works. I don't, America isn't any better than some of these, what we see going on in some of these other countries. But the difference in the US is, we have strongest currency, and so we just print outrageous amounts of money. But the biggest opportunities are taking those funds and then, getting access to the funds at these low rates, and then going to these other places where not only are you getting benefit of the inflation of generating income off of money that is going to be worth less in the future, and you can pay that debt back at a lower amount. But when you take it into a country where the dollar is stronger than their currency, you get this additional benefit, and then you look at creative ways of borrowing that. And so it's very exciting what's going on. So I want you guys to be aware. I mentioned the benefits of accessing capital right now. but I wanted to do this quick video and talk about why. And the main thing, just to break it down to the simplest form, is you want to look at what the government's doing. The government's taking on massive, massive debt. And what they're going to be motivated to do is erode what they owe in the future, which means there's going to be a aggressive push towards making the dollar worth less in the future, which can be of benefit, but it's not going to be of benefit. In fact, it's going to be to tremendous detriment if you're holding money in dollars. So savers are definitely going to suffer. It's why we see money. One of the reasons that crypto is doing so well is that people understand they've got to get out of the dollar. All right, let's answer some of your questions. Let's see who we got on here. All right, be sure to like as y'all pop in, pretty please, and feel free just to say hello. What we got? Darius, what's up, man? He says, "Hey, yo, Ace, just watched the last post on credit. That's perfect intro to what we discussed today. Let me know if what we discussed today makes sense, or if it's just like, dude, that means nothing to me, everything you just talked about." All right, dumbest smart person. I love that name. And I think that's what you always want to be. Like, you want to be the dumbest smart person around. Oh, and you want to be we want to be a smart person, obviously, but in every room you enter, you want to be the dumbest and try to learn as much as possible. It says, "Ace, I watched your interview with Ryan. Got me thinking about the concepts of buying parts such as trucks, customer lists, blue collar, one-man shows." Yes. I love those businesses. The plumbing industry, locksmith industry, painter industry. There are some amazing opportunities. I'm helping, and this is just everywhere. This is literally everywhere. I'm helping a company. I was just in the city of Mexico City. I'm mixing Spanish and English. It's Ciudad de Mexico, but it's Mexico City. And so it doesn't make sense at all when you say City of Mexico. But so yeah, helping someone up there that owns a flower business just through networking, helping a couple businesses as well in Colombia. And so in addition to acquiring these, sometimes you can just partner with them and help them. I mean, it's amazing just some of the low-hanging fruit that exists in some of those industries, or kind of like these one-man shop type of businesses. How would you go about this as a young 17-year-old? So that's perfect for what I actually just mentioned. I didn't see this question before, but what I would do is look to create consulting for equity type of deal structures where you're going into their business instead of acquiring their business. You're either doing one or two things. You're seeing, hey, I notice you're not even listed on Google, or I notice, there's you don't have a website. I was having lunch with a buddy, and one of my favorite restaurants here in Colombia, and they don't have a website, and I've gone there for a long time, and I'm kind of figured like, okay, they're gonna get when I'm talking to the guy. I'm like, why don't you have a website, man? And just no social media presence, all that stuff. So you can go into these businesses and partner with them and help them and get some of that stuff done, and either have a deal structure where you're making a certain amount of income, based on your impact on the business, or it's somebody that does want to sell and you take an equity position instead, and you prepare the business for sale. Most businesses are not ready to be sold. All right, let's pop down and mix it up a little bit. Let's see, this one's long. I haven't read it yet. Joshua says, question, Mr. Chairman, in your opinion, Considering your experience, would it be better to buy a bank with an LBO or just create a new bank outright? I personally, if you, what it takes to start a bank is a lot of connections. They want to see community involvement. They want to see a lot of investors, a lot of people on board, because they're looking for, just the strength from a cash basis right off the back. And so, what I'm just a bigger fan. Like, if you, bottom line is, if you can put together an LBO or you can start a bank, you're in an amazing position to be able to start a fund. And there's just so much more money. Like, now's the worst time to start a bank. You want to look you want to what are the margins in whatever business that you're going into. And right now, because the banks are just getting, every bank is getting loaded with a ton of cash. Just the margins are terrible in banking. Banks are trying to get out of banking. Banks are trying to get into crypto. I would not try to start a bank. If I'm looking in that space, my number one would be a private equity fund. My number two would be an investment bank, which would just be being a financier. I would look at the financier videos that I talk about, which all a financier is an individual as a bank. So Marcus Goldman, who started Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, who started Morgan Stanley. All of these people are just started as financiers. And it's an individual investment bank. And when you're just an individual investment bank, you don't even have to go through all of the headache. You can still do a lot of the similar things. And all you're doing is accessing capital. What a bank does is access capital at a low rate, and then they're able to put that capital to work at a higher rate, and you make fees and interest and everything in between. And so that's just what you want to do. Like, that's what the foundation of where you're headed. It's also, what I get people all the time. Hold on, take a sip. I get people all the time. They're like, okay, I want to figure out how to buy a business. I want to do this and I've got this amount of money, and I'm looking to do my next deal. And I always encourage those people, it's like, take a portion of that money and start to invest, start to basically become a financier as early as possible, because that's the end goal. The last thing you want to do, and what gets a lot of, especially entrepreneurs, in trouble, they end up losing a lot of their money, is because they're really great, or even people that acquire businesses, they're really great at getting into a business, running that business, and growing it. Then they have an exit, they get some cash out, but now they don't know what to do with that. They're not experts at running money, essentially. They're not experts at being a financier. So the reason I really push you guys in that direction is that's where you want to end up. And so you want to be an expert at that before you need to be an expert at it. You want to have those losses along the way. So while you're on your acquisition journey, while you're on whatever, even if you're on your employee journey, you want to be building up this expertise in being a financier, because whenever you get done, you with work or the exit or whatever the goal is, you want to be really, really good at making money with your money. And most people aren't. And so they get out and they're either trusting a financial advisor, which just for a lot of reasons puts you at a huge disadvantage, because you don't know what's going on. Madoff just passed away, and the big issue there was people didn't know what was going on with their money, and these were wealthy people that made money in different things, but they didn't know what he was doing. Now we all know what he was doing. So it's important, I think, to start that just day one. Like, yeah, there's just so many reasons you want to start that from day one. And so you should consider yourself a bank right now, and you don't even need a bank to start implementing those strategies. All right. One real quick before I answer Dante's question, I do want to say if you're working a job, back to that earlier conversation, and we're talking about this whole idea of borrowing and making money and being able to almost be paid in a sense to borrow right now. This doesn't work if you're in a job. So especially if you're not in like a commission based or some kind of job that will increase with inflation. With a business, when you're selling a product, as inflation goes up, you're raising your prices. Unfortunately, if you're in a job, in a lot of cases, it's a lot more stagnant and you're trying to go in and negotiate those increases. And a lot of times in times of high inflation, the average job increase raises don't keep up with that inflation. And so you can be at a big disadvantage. So that case is really specific to when you are going to acquire a business that will keep up with inflation. All right, Dante says, love your videos, catch them on the playback, but don't see the live. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for making it to the live this time. As y'all are popping in, be sure to hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, feel free to subscribe, but would love to also see your questions. Let's see. Professor Left, what's up? Says, just got my passport. Keeping eyes on open when I go to Colombia. Yes, 100%. Right now, it's I probably would not even recommend a trip. There's just a lot of reasons. If you are, especially if you're new, there's protests going on. There's curfews going on. There's on the weekend, sometimes just everything's shut down. So not the most opportune time, but there are plenty of places that are completely open to be traveling to. I've got a few on my list to start checking out. All right. Ryan Washington, what is up? Thanks for popping in. Would you implement crypto into your companies? So implement, I'm curious what you mean by implement, but I am pushing, not all the companies are doing it, but I'm pushing every company to have crypto right now. Probably half at least have an account. And that's done really well. Even the company that we're taking public, it was a bit of a process and actually a bit of a headache to be able to buy crypto. But we have just added to, actually right before this boom that we've seen this week, we just added to our holdings. But there's a lot to be done, man. It's very exciting. Bottom line is I'm very excited about the DeFi space, some big opportunities there that, I'm implementing personally. But in general, I just think every company should hold some crypto and accept crypto as payment and eventually have a DeFi strategy. And then if you're borrowing, there's just some really cool opportunities to still be able to hold your crypto, borrow against that crypto. If you're a growing company, you can take those funds and invest in your growth. So I'm a believer, a big fan. And I think there's on an international level, there's so much going on. I feel like when I do these videos, there's like all these rabbit holes, but you look at what's going on in Argentina, you look at what's happened with the currency in Venezuela. These countries, the citizens are basically begging and in need. You see what's happened with Ethiopia. I think the biggest thing, shout out to Dante. I think was it Dante that mentioned the passport? Professor Left mentioned the passport. I just think now it is more important than ever to think on a global level, understand global economies, This like the time of isolation was over 20 years ago with the start of the internet, but now on a financial basis, it's just really wiped away. And there will be governments that try to shut this down and come up with different policies to put it under their control and that kind of thing. But once you start to play around with it and you see how it works and you realize, oh, like with my bank, there's this and all of these headaches, and with this, it's like it is just it's really incredible. And then I can lend and I can earn interest and I can borrow against it and not have to face these capital gains tax. It's just so much. There's so much. So I'm very excited. Hopefully I didn't go on too long about that. Okay, let's see. What else we got? What else we got? Thanks for popping in. And then Ryan says, about to partner with a car repair owner to take over a business doing what you just said. Love it. Congrats. Actually have a deal like that on a car wash where it's set up as a royalty. And so I just get paid per car that comes through, which is a little bit of an interesting deal. I call it a royalty, but cool deal. Dumbest smart person. I guess this is in response to the earlier question and answer. Thanks a lot, Ace. The preparation for sale bit makes a lot of sense. I'm going to double down on this idea. I think there's that. Is a huge opportunity. There are tons of people that are looking to exit their business after everything that we've been through over the last year. And so having somebody who will, one of the things that you find, and I've seen this after people put 20, 30 years into a business and they hit that wall and they're done with it. And so they don't have that last bit of energy to put into what is a lot of work to go through the sales process. And so in a lot of cases, they don't end up maximizing what they could sell the business for just because they're tired. They're like, I'm done with this. I'm ready to move on. And so they don't get that benefit. And so being able to go in and help them is a very big value. Let's see. What's up, Bays? Always keeping us informed. Trying my best. You guys ask great questions, so that makes it very easy. When it comes to accessing debt markets, what is your favorite source? Banks, private, I'm assuming private investors, SBA, crowdfunding, etc. It is such a deal by deal basis. I was just involved with a crowdfunding deal where I was an investor in the business. They did an amazing job, got an amazing raise. I love it. It's equity, and for that business, equity makes sense. In some businesses, SBA isn't even available, and so SBA is really a deal by deal basis based on what they're interested in. I love always including private investors. I feel like that's a part of it's separate. So there's a tranche in the deal that is complementary to all of these other ones. So with your investors, you're giving them this leverage. And so when you can take investors and you can combine that with an SBA loan, now you're just generating even better returns for those investors. And so I'm always trying to get investors a little bit of exposure to a lot of different deals. And then I'm using leverage on top of that. But I would say that you want to include them whenever possible if they're willing, because that diversification is what's going to give them the experience of, okay, I'm there's this risky asset class, I've worked with Darius over these 4 deals. We had 2 that exploded and did really, really well and exceeded all expectation. One that was terrible and sucked, and then one that was average, but overall my return was 50%. And so that's what you're looking for there. And then with banks, again, in a lot of cases, if you're working with a bank, it's going to be through SBA. Otherwise, it's typically going to be asset based or even merchant events. So there's just so many, but you got to look at the deal. You got to make sure that it makes sense with the deal that you're doing. And there are a lot of deals that, number one, won't qualify for a major. Out of we've gone through the process on like maybe 5 or 6 deals to do raises with different crowdfunding platforms, and we've only had one approved by Start Engine and one approved by WeFunder. And I'm not a huge fan of some of the smaller platforms. They just don't have enough investors to make it worth it, and they're going to take their fee. So why even do that if you have to be the person basically raising from your investors anyway? So a lot there. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea. Montreal, what's up, homie? Thanks for popping in. Says, hey, Ace, just joined the stream. What kind of deals are you looking to do at the moment? Great question. So I was talking a little bit earlier in the stream. I'm heavily focused on international deals. I think that's where the biggest opportunities are. Because there are just a lot of places. Like if you think the U.S. has been hit hard by the whole thing that's happened. It's not even just the city. It's just like all of these other economic impacts of everything that's happened over the last year with this whole beer bug. The impact in a lot of other countries has been worse, and so it creates an opportunity to have a positive impact, which is great, and an opportunity to get an amazing return. In addition, I'm just a very big fan of getting into deals and being a kind of financier. As far as like, there's the target of the deal. So what businesses are you targeting? What locations are you targeting? But then there's the deal structures. And in a lot of deals, I want to participate in the balance sheet more as an investor. It could be debt, equity, royalty, all of those types of things. And so I'm looking. The question came up earlier about acquiring a bank. I'm really looking to be the bank. In deals, and the name that we call that is being a financier. Great question. Does Dealmaker Academy teach how to access SBA funds? 100%. Not just teach, but like help you walk through that process, getting the right kind of deal that's gonna get approved. All of those things. Alex, what's up? Thanks for popping in. Love your videos, Ace. Really catch the live. What's your thoughts on investing in NFTs? I just did an interview. Go check out Rhyme Makers on YouTube. I think it's on YouTube. But I just did a podcast interview. They have a podcast as well. And in that, I talk about NFTs and some of the opportunities that exist. I think we're early. We're just very, very early. I think there are both. I do have some investments in some NFTs that I like, but I think there are definitely going to be some major losers, but there are going to be some major winners, which is what happens when you're early in something for sure. I want to do a video on this, Dante. I want to do a video on this. There was actually a gentleman from Atlanta who went to Colombia, was making a major investment, into basically six-figure investment into acquiring a commercial building that had some apartments, had some restaurants in it, and was actually murdered. And just there's some suspicious things around it. I want to do a video on it, but suffice to say, there's work that goes into knowing who you're dealing with, having attorneys, having references. The thing about he really kind of recorded this whole process, and so you got to see him going through, which was interesting. But the thing that you notice, and which is number one, is like he didn't really have anybody on his team. He wasn't going to these meetings with his own attorney. You want to have a full team on the ground in these places that you trust, that have experience, and you want to know the people that you're doing business with. There were a couple of videos where he was talking about, hey, like, I don't really trust this guy that he was doing a deal with, which there's a lot, and I want to kind of be careful about. I want to plan out how I do that video, but I do want to do a video, not so much saying that he did anything, wrong, but just kind of giving warnings on what to do. I've been to Algeria, man. Like, I've gone over and been negotiating, and got to meet with basically the head of their central bank, and some pretty cool stuff. But it's a very, very dangerous place, to the point that my passport was actually canceled for that trip, because I went in there just like, why were you in Algeria? Like, this is suspicious, da, da, da. But we had former Secret Service people with us. Security, when you're going into these places, the amount of money that you may think, oh, this is small. Like, if you're in a country, South America countries, there are plenty of countries where the average income might be 3,000-4,000. 6,000-7,000 is amazing at middle class. And so when you go in and you're waving around $500,000 or doing these kind of deals, like, this is outrageous amounts of money. And so taking precaution, understanding the culture, just those kinds of things is important. And then just if you, especially, like little things like not knowing the language, it's possible to do great deals without knowing the language, but then you really want to go like double, triple check. And so there's a lot to it. I'll do a video on that. Wrapping up this one for today. Let's see if there's a last little question here. Thanks for that, Darius. I appreciate it. Joshua, what's up? Thanks for popping in. Be sure to hit the like button. During the last recession, multifamily real estate was quite resilient to the crash. Why is that? I'm 17, by the way, and just got done watching the Reginald Lewis documentary. Awesome documentary, especially to get exposed to that guy and what he accomplished at a young age is pretty awesome. So, people have to have a place to live. That's the bottom line there. People have to have a place to live. And during times where people aren't, I think in general, so there are a couple things there. It's like, oh, what's happening in particular in a recession? So people are losing their jobs. They're not in the, people have these kind of uncertainty with their income. And so they're looking to get into an apartment, which, only is a year commitment. They don't have to worry about being tied into this mortgage, all of those things. So that part makes sense. But there's also just a bigger trend to people understanding the economics that don't make sense behind owning your own home and having that mortgage. Multiply that by the fact that people are more interested in being nomadic than ever before, and not even my kind of nomadic. People want the freedom to be able to move if they want to, and now you see these mass exoduses from states and cities because of taxes and all that, and so there's a cultural aspect of just young people now are understand that, hey, I can work remotely, I can work from anywhere, I don't want to be tied to just one place. Even older people thinking, I don't want to be tied to a place if they decide to make higher taxes, blah blah blah. And so there's this whole move towards that, which I think will continue. I just did another investment in a multifamily deal or just in the last couple of months. There's been one in Florida and one in Georgia. So for multifamily, you have the things that aren't going to be out of the park deals, but like we said, we want to make sure we're keeping inflation, and we just don't want anything in cash. Everything should be put to work, and then having velocity in your income. Where I do want things that make income more than capital appreciation, and then I'm taking that income and putting that into the next thing. All right. Let's get out of here. Feel free to put any questions I didn't get into the comments below, and I will put them at the top of the list for the next live. Thanks so much for popping in on a Saturday night, a bunch of nerds like me. Y'all have a good night. Thanks.